The first line of the year is out for the 2022 season. It means that you're getting closer and closer to the fall and Georgia's 2022 season, which will kick off against the Oregon Ducks at the Dome in Atlanta. Um, Dan Lanning and crew will be in town to take on Georgia, and they will be a pretty significant underdog to Georgia. They will be a 15-point underdog. That line released yesterday. And you know, there's there's a lot to discuss here about all of this. First of all, Kirby and them have only lost once in their entire time at Georgia as 15-point favorites or more, and they've been 15-point favorites a lot. Now that game was the South Carolina game in Sanford Stadium, and it's kind of hard to keep talking about that because it's a total outlier. Um, but you know, 87% chance to win the game because you're about a 15-point favorite. I gotta say, it sounds about right to me. And I'm not surprised at all that they'd be a uh, two score favorite over the Ducks. It's just gonna it's just kind of a matter of time, I think, before Georgia in that game before Georgia overwhelms the Ducks with the amount of skill that they've got. I mean, Oregon is starting totally over. They got a new head coach. They got a new quarterback. One of their best players, not unlike Georgia, is going in the first round in Thibodeau. So we'll just see what happens with that game. But I'm wondering what everybody thinks about that line. And there's a lot of other lines um, that are out there too that I want to kind of kick around a little bit because a lot of them are games that everybody would be interested in. Uh, Cincinnati will be a 8-point underdog at Arkansas. JT Daniels and company will be a touchdown underdog to Pitt. Again, if JT and I think West Virginia is a dark horse to get to the playoff, but it's all predicated on their first game. If they don't beat Pittsburgh, you can forget it. After that, the Big 12 is so bad that if you are a one-loss Big 12 champion, I think you might get into the playoff. We'll see. Obviously, we talked about Georgia and Oregon. Mississippi State, an 11-point favorite over Memphis Tigers. Ohio State, 13-point favorite over Notre Dame. That's a pretty consequential number right there. That's a big old number. LSU, a 3.5-point favorite over Florida State. Clemson, a 21.5-point favorite over Georgia Tech. Can Clemson, and I'm not even joking, can Clemson score 3 touchdowns? I mean, they didn't have a lot of games last year where they were really offensively productive, and the spring game didn't look real good either. Um, and then the other game, I don't know if I touched on it yet or not. The Gators, a point favorite at home against Utah. I don't think it's out of the question. I think Utah should probably be favored in that game because there's just so much going on at Florida. But we're just gonna have to see. In Utah, with Kyle Whittingham, is an excellent head coach and has been for a long time. But Georgia, the Georgia Bulldogs, trying to win the national championship for the second year in a row. You can pick up DAWGSTRUCTION. It is an awesome recap, 80 pages of everything. The forward from Jeff Foxworthy. I don't think I've mentioned that yet. I've got to send Jeff some books today, but just images you're not going to see anywhere else, and storytelling. Honestly, Jeff's forward is outstanding, and he talks about his grandfather and how he watched the 1980 national championship game by himself, picking up a television and dragging. Well, you know what? The book's down below. Why don't you go ahead and grab it if you're interested? But I'll tell you, to me, um, 15 is a lot. 15 is a lot. But there's so much with this Oregon team um, that they're having to redo. It's hard to really expect them to stick with Georgia and win the game. I've said that on here for a while, that it's going to be tough for Oregon to win this game, and now we see in numerical terms what that means. It's going to be tough for the Ducks, but there's no shifting yesterday. Yeah, no shifting really yesterday with odds in terms of who would win the national championship. Um, it's curious because Utah and the Gators, Utah is slightly favored more than Florida to win the national championship, which is to say that neither of them will, and they're both around the same as Oregon. Does that mean that Georgia will be somewhere around a 15-point favorite over the Gators in Jacksonville? One of the guys on Dog Post that's been a longtime subscriber, is a very valuable member of the site, uh, follows betting in a very close way. Now, why do I? Because I don't bet on games for a lot of different reasons, but first of all, it's something to talk about. But secondly, um, it gives you sort of an idea where people who do make a living at this, not that I don't, that they make a living on the outcome of games, uh, where they view things at. So one thing I'm going to do right now is talk about Purple Brave. He's a subscriber over on Dog Post, a longtime subscriber, and he's talking about predictive spreads. And I'm going to go through these just real quick for the season, and it will give you a pretty good idea on right this second what this the season would be, the lines would be for each game that the Dogs play. We've already talked about the Oregon game. He thought it would be 14, that Georgia would be a 14-point favorite, but it's kind of settled down at 15. Samford, which is not kind of a real game, Georgia would be a 40-point favorite at South Carolina. Um, he thinks Georgia will be about a 17-point favorite against South Carolina on the road. So that would be very similar to the I feel like the 18 game, Georgia was a pretty significant favorite, maybe not 17 though. A 38-point favorite over Kent State, a 20-point favorite at Missouri. So you're talking about back-to-back games on the road where you'd be a three-score favorite. That's pretty significant. A 17-point favorite over Auburn, which is not dissimilar to the 18 game against Auburn, where Georgia was a pretty significant favorite at home. This game, of course, will be at home too. But Auburn's not starting over. It just feels like they're starting over. And then you've got the Vanderbilt game. They are going to be about a 37-point favorite on against Vandy in Athens. And then we talked about Florida earlier. Does that mean Georgia will be about a 15-point favorite? He thinks they're going to be about a 2 touchdown favorite, so about a 14-point favorite over the Gators. Honestly, to me, that doesn't sound that bad. What's going on with Florida, though, is we just don't know with the Gators kind of where they're at with everything. So that all these lines will change. These are predictive spreads of where things will be. I mean, if Florida's hot, then maybe that game will be more like Georgia as an 11-point favorite, which is what Purple thinks the Tennessee game will be. I think that this is the most challenging part of Georgia's schedule. These four games: Florida, Tennessee, which Georgia would be about a 10, 11-point favorite, and then at Mississippi State, where you'd still be a 12-point favorite or so. That's another double-digit favorite. I'll tell you, I don't know. You know, at State, that number seems a little low. I mean, like if Georgia's going to be a 17-point favorite over South Carolina, I would think that they'd be at least a 15-point favorite over Mississippi State. But, you know, let's just see. And then the trickiest game probably this season at Kentucky, the Cats an 11-point dog at home. The problem for Kentucky, to me, in all the time that they play Georgia here lately with Stoops as their coach, who's done and probably the best job of anybody that's not at a playoff level team. Uh, is that Kentucky is built a lot like Georgia, so they have to be better than Georgia at what Georgia does. That's tricky, man. I mean, that's hard to pull off. And then for the first time, um, not Jeff Collins has Georgia Tech in Athens. That would be a nearly 5 touchdown spread for the Jackets to be underdogs. Georgia Tech's not played in Athens since 2018, and of course Paul Johnson was let go, whatever that was, a couple of days later, and then Jeff Collins took over. Purple Brave adds. He's a subscriber on Dog Post that right now Georgia would probably be about a 4 point dog to Alabama. That's got to be on a neutral field because I was about to say neutral court because they don't play each other in the regular season. So that would be about what Georgia was in the national championship game against Alabama, maybe a little bit higher. So those two teams still close, even though Georgia's lost all they did. But the Oregon Ducks, a 15-point dog to the Dogs. What do you think about that? Let me know below. We'll see you on the website.